This week, our family has experienced the cancellation or modification of several of our boys' summer activities with such disappointment. It's taken away the community aspect or the feeling of engagement as we know it, and there's so many emotions that are present with this. This mama's heart is breaking for them, and my brain is racing as I try to both console and honor them and also find a way to work through and find an alternative. We, as a family, like many of you, are going through losses on a regular basis. And that's what they are. They're losses. We are all grieving. I have been doing grief counseling for 18 years, and one of my greatest connections with each client comes when I can help them to name their feelings and proclaim them as normal reactions to loss, even though they feel abnormal, and sometimes they even describe themselves as feeling crazy. But there's a peace that comes with just naming and normalizing it. And we can do the same in these times. Loss takes so many forms. It's not just about death. And each loss is very personal to us, so we can't compare. We should not compare our losses to someone else's. Right now, we are grieving not just the loss of life, but life as we know it. And while we grieved in one way with the stay-at-home order, now we're grieving another way as we start to see things open up, but they look very, very different. So for example, those of us who are ready and who are able to return to church, we will still experience a loss in the way that it's now limited. The 5 stages of grief, though, they do not progress neatly one by one in orderly fashion until you reach acceptance. They're actually very helpful to teach us and others that we love how to be aware of what we're feeling, why we feel that way, and that they're a normal part of the human condition. So denial, shock, disbelief, trying to wrap your head around what you experience, it's a pause button of sorts to allow us to absorb what's happening in smaller, manageable doses. And it's not a bad thing to experience denial. It's actually a protection of our hearts and our minds to not take on too much. When you see the church for the first time with the marked off pews and the signs and the masks and no contact, that's a lot to absorb, and we'll need time to process. The next stage is anger, this unfairness of everything happening, of so much being taken away from us. There's also bargaining, questioning our responses, thinking if only, or maybe if I do this, or if I change this, then things will change. It's our attempt to control the uncontrollable, so it makes sense to us. Then there's depression, another stage, sadness, an unexplained heaviness, that emptiness, this wandering that I found so common, that feeling that we have plenty of time to do things, but we don't really know what to do. We don't really feel like doing a lot of things. And then there's acceptance, which is not, yay, I'm all good now, it's all great, but it's rather, it's not okay, but I can live with it, and I'm going to accept that these are the circumstances, what I can control and what I can't control. And now there is an idea out there from grief expert David Kessler, which I just love, a 6th stage, which is one that also ties in perfectly with our faith, and that's finding meaning in these losses. How will the Lord transform this grief into a gift? What will I learn? How will I be different going forward? When we can find meaning, we can find hope. We can choose to look for the meaning. We can choose to hope even in the face of these losses. A reading from 1 Thessalonians that we use at funerals, it begins with, so that you may not grieve like the rest who have no hope. And it ends with, we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, let us console one another with these words. So in grief, in loss, there is still hope. We shall always be with the Lord. And the Lord is always with us in every circumstance. Let us console one another as we move back and forth through these stages of grief together with the hope and the faith that points us to a life beyond all of this. God bless.